Hello and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. I'm Mackailyn Johnson. Here's a look at the stories we're bringing you today. Waking up to colder temps this morning was glorious for some, especially if you got to stay in and bundled up, unlike some of us. If you're like me, you're wondering if the weather is here to stay. We'll have the answer in less than a minute. And right now, Little Rock police are investigating another homicide. What we know in 2 minutes. Fans of Rocky sequels, get ready. The latest installment of Creed is on the way. We have the details on that and more in our must-see headlines just ahead. But first, the woman we're all looking to right now is meteorologist Corrales Ortiz. It's no secret, it's cold out there, Corrales.
Oh, yeah. Burr, indeed, like you saw in the title there. We're still trying to stay warm as best as we can. We're slowly warming up now that we're in the afternoon, but still, it was quite the cold morning for many. We saw many record low temperatures broken as well. I'll have more details on that just ahead, but let's take a look at what we did see this morning. We dropped to 33 here. Little Rock seemed to be the only place that didn't really get to that freezing mark. I don't think that temperature Monticello is correct, so ignore that. But elsewhere, as you can see, many locations were well below that freezing mark. We're just into the 50s this afternoon, sitting at 52, still stuck in the 40s to our north and west. That region not going to be nearly as warm as the rest of the state. Highs are expected to be around that low 60 mark for us this afternoon. I promise we do have some warmer days in store. I'll get to more on that just ahead.
Thanks, Corrales. Now, sticking with this fall freeze of sorts, it has a lot of people switching that heater on a lot earlier than they'd like. And since it's been a while since we've seen a drop in temps like this, it's important to stay on top of your system's maintenance. A good thing for us with this cold snap is that it's going to be brief, out of here in a couple of days. It's good because heating experts advise getting your systems checked before the winter season comes. Drew Vest with Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric tells us when it warms up a little bit, like it will in the coming days, it gives our systems a trial run. They expect an increase in calls as people turn to their heaters and find it isn't working properly. It's also important to get a check of your system because it can protect you and your home from potential hazards.
With electric, there is no combustible materials being burned, and so with a natural gas or propane furnace, since it is combustion, one of the byproducts is carbon monoxide. So along with having your system serviced when you go into heating season, you just want to make sure that your carbon monoxide and smoke detectors all have good batteries, and that you test those and make sure they're in good working order.
He says to get service done twice a year, once before heating season and once before cooling season. Now, new today, another person is dead in a Little Rock homicide. Police say it happened on Leander Drive, that's near Canis and Rodney Parham Road. The address is for the Ridge Apartments. Police wrapped up the scene overnight after finding a man had been shot. He was taken to a local hospital where he later died. His body has been sent to the state crime lab. Police have not released the name of the victim or a motive in the killing. We'll continue to keep you updated as we work to learn more information. And in a THV 11 update, an Oregon man arrested and charged in a 2004 Arkansas cold case has now been sentenced to 4 decades behind bars. The 40-year sentence handed down to William Miller for brutally killing Rebecca Gold, then dumping her body. The 22-year-old's body was discovered on the side of the highway in Izard County in 2004. Monday's plea deal included waiving his right to a jury trial. The Pulaski County Courthouse reopened this morning after dealing with a power outage the past 2 days. It was the last thing restored after an underground electrical fire knocked out power for a large part of downtown late Sunday night. We first told you Monday morning Entergy believes underground equipment overheated, sparking the fire. A company spokesperson tells us why crews had to shut off power across downtown.
The reason we had to take out all the power in that area is because it all comes from one transmission line, and so we had to cut off the source to extinguish the fire. You can't put water on it or anything like that because it's an electrical fire.
If you tried to get something done over the last few days at the courthouse, the county is posting updates on its website and social media. Pulaski County is unveiling new high-tech body scanners today, similar to what you'll see at an airport. They're going in at the Regional Detention Facility on Roosevelt Road. The security upgrades are designed to better catch contraband from being snuck inside the jail. The scanners also detect concealed weapons, explosives, and drugs. THV 11 is your election central. Before early voting gets underway next week, the candidates in the state's top races continue to make their case to voters. This afternoon, candidates for Attorney General faced off in a debate on Arkansas's PBS. Democrat Jesse Gibson is challenging Republican Tim Griffin, who's the current lieutenant governor. You can watch the full debate right now on the THV 11 YouTube page, and we're going to have highlights tonight at 5 and 6. Now, we are also closely following the 2023 governor's race. Republican Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Democrat Chris Jones, and Libertarian Ricky Dale Harrington Jr. will meet on the debate stage Friday morning at 10 a.m. We're going to be live streaming that event as well as on THV 11 Plus and on YouTube. And later this evening on 6:30 Central, we explain issue 3 and the push to ban the government from being a burden on someone's religion. Remember, THV 11 is your election central, and you can find information to help you vote on THV11.com. Just text the word vote to this number, 501-376-1111. We'll send you our brand new voter guide full of information about the major races, candidates, and the issues you will see on your ballot. Turning now to a nationwide issue on the minds of many voters. Yesterday, President Biden pledged to codify abortion access into law if voters elect more Democrats to Congress. Biden speaking at a DNC reproductive rights event, emphasizing how midterm elections are just 3 weeks away and a woman's right to choose is on the ballot. The pledge coming at a critical moment before midterm elections, with many questioning if Democrats will control enough seats in Congress to make change.
And folks, if we do that, here's the promise I make to you and the American people. The first bill that I will send to the Congress will be to codify Roe v. Wade. And when Congress passes it, I'll sign it in January, 50 years after Roe was first decided the law of the land.
Codifying Roe v. Wade would require a 60-seat majority in the Senate or changing filibuster rules. And now to an election topic sent in by viewers. Every commercial break contains campaign ads right now, but does the law require TV stations to air an equal amount of ads for every candidate? Casey Decker with our Verify team has the answer.
It's election season, which means most of the ads you see right now during commercial breaks are probably for political candidates. One of our viewers in Texas noticed she was seeing a lot more ads for Republican Governor Greg Abbott than his Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. This raises a question a lot of people have during election season. Aren't candidates guaranteed equal amounts of ad time? Let's verify. Our sources are the FCC, the Communications Act of 1934, and David Schultz, a law professor at the University of Minnesota. The idea of equal time for candidates on TV comes from the Communications Act, which is enforced by the FCC. It says that if a candidate appears for more than 4 seconds on a TV station's air, that station, quote, shall afford equal opportunities to all other such candidates for that office. But there are some big exceptions. Notably, news coverage or interviews don't count. What does count is entertainment content. For example, during President Ronald Reagan's campaign, some stations stopped airing old movies he starred in. And this year, when Mehmet Oz started his Senate campaign, he stopped making his TV show Dr. Oz, in part because any station that aired it would have had to offer equal free airtime to his opponent, John Fetterman. But there's another key limitation of this law. Notice it says equal opportunities, not actually equal time. So if a candidate buys an ad for $1,000 in prime time, the station has to give their opponent the option to purchase an ad for the same price at the same time. But if the opponent can't afford it or just doesn't want to buy that ad space, the station doesn't have to do anything else. They've given them equal opportunity.
It doesn't mean that it has to give, at the end of the day, the same amount of real time if some candidates have more money and can actually purchase more time. All it says is we've got to provide the same opportunity.
And yet another limitation, this law only applies to broadcast TV and radio, so cable and the internet aren't affected by any of this. That means we can verify, no, political candidates are not guaranteed equal amounts of ad time. They are only guaranteed the opportunity to get the same amount of time as their opponents for the same price. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
Now, in other news, the Internal Revenue Service announced it is adjusting federal tax brackets to account for inflation next year. Tax brackets for multiple types of filers will get around a 7% bump, which means many Americans will get to keep more of their money. But since the IRS adjustments are for 2023, taxpayers will not actually get to see those returns until 2024. Russian airstrikes have knocked out power and water to hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says a third of the country's power stations have been destroyed in the past week. He's urging citizens to conserve electricity and to brace for a tough winter. Just ahead, how Latinas are using clothing to weave together a community and give you insight into their culture. But first, let's check in with meteorologist Corrales Ortiz.
Coming up, I'll be talking about what changes we have for the rest of the week. That includes a warm up and when our next chance of rain is coming up.